If you had to pick the absolute pinnacle of two-wheeled performance, the Ducati Panigale would undoubtedly be at the top of the list. Connor, a man nearing 50, spent the morning on the road, waiting for the prize he had won in an auction nearly 2 weeks ago, this 2023 Ducati 959 Panigale. After getting his hands on his new bike, Connor and his friend loaded it onto the trailer to haul it back to the workshop. The main reason Connor bought this bike was because the engine was still in working order. Wanting to get it repaired as quickly as possible, he immediately dove into the teardown to figure out exactly which parts needed to be replaced. He started with the various components on the front end. As you can see, a lot of the wiring was damaged in the crash. Next came the seats and the fuel tank. Connor discovered that the front forks he removed were slightly bent and definitely couldn't be reused. The damaged front wheel was junk. He then continued the disassembly. Removing the radiator was much easier. He had the whole wrecked unit off in no time. At this point, most of the damaged parts of the Ducati 959 had been stripped away. Next up were the exhaust pipes and the subframe. You can see that the Ducati 959's exhaust system has an incredibly unique design. After removing the exhaust, Connor found another hidden issue. The clear clutch cover was a cheap knockoff. This was unacceptable to Connor, and he'd have to find a genuine replacement later. But the immediate task was to remove the cover. With a plan in place, he drained the old oil that had been sitting in the engine. With the oil drained, he could start the disassembly. The removed cover actually gave Connor a pleasant surprise. Even though it was a replica, there were no quality issues. So if he didn't care about brand prestige, he could technically reuse it. However, the bearing inside wasn't so lucky. It was severely worn and completely unusable. Connor had to remove it. Over the next few days, the parts he had ordered started to arrive. First up was the new exhaust system he had ordered for the Ducati. This exhaust offers a significant improvement in both sound and weight. The original subframe wasn't damaged in the crash, so it just needed a good cleaning. The main frame itself also didn't need any major work, just a quick cleanup. Connor used brute force to remove the damaged wiring harnesses and brackets from the frame. With the teardown complete, it was time for the exciting part, unboxing. The new exhaust system even came with carbon fiber heat shields. Seeing this brand new exhaust, Connor was already fantasizing about how it would look on the bike. Eager to see his vision come to life, Connor sped up the process. He installed the newly arrived exhaust system and the cleaned subframe. Next, he had to address the bad bearing he found earlier. He removed the old bearing and replaced it with a genuine OEM bearing kit. He also swapped in a new OEM clutch cover. The old oil filter was also tossed and replaced with a new one. Next was installing the new headlight bracket, which Connor had sourced from a used donor bike. With the front end sorted, it was time to deal with the fuel tank. You can see a significant dent in the tank, which would definitely affect the bike's appearance, but since it would be covered by bodywork later, the tank was still usable. Connor found a fuel cap in the workshop and installed it on the tank. After mounting the tank, Connor began his search for a new rear shock. He really splurged here, spending $1,995. After a few days of waiting, the brand new shock finally arrived. It came with 3 different springs, allowing him to adjust it based on his weight.
The new front forks he ordered had also arrived. The box contained a new set of fork springs and pistons, as well as a new steering damper. Looking at all these high-performance parts, it seems Connor is planning to build this 959 into a full-on race bike. But the surprises didn't end there. He also got a set of lightly used brake rotors and a brand new front wheel. With that, all the components for the Ducati 959's front end were here. Now he just had to assemble them. Since he had the new rear shock, the original one could be removed. To be honest, the stock shock was still usable, but this Ducati 959 was Connor's baby. He was going to use the best parts available. Besides, the new shock was a significant aesthetic upgrade. He transferred any usable trim pieces from the old shock to the new one. Next up was the triple tree. Connor removed the damaged steering stem. The bearing area was clearly bent and unusable. He just had to press in new bearings and races onto the new steering stem. Then he could install the new front forks. With that, the front and rear suspension issues were solved. Another batch of packages arrived at the shop. Inside was a new upper triple clamp and a set of clutch and brake levers. Connor carefully installed them on the bike along with the brand new front wheel. After installing the new levers, Connor pulled out a professional race spec button cluster. This was a rare find. It took him a lot of effort to source this professional racing equipment. With that, the handlebar rebuild was complete. While he was at it, he also bled the clutch system, repeatedly pumping the lever to purge all the air. With all that done, it was time for the first startup attempt. But after several tries, the engine wouldn't turn over. Connor swapped in a new battery, and finally the engine roared to life. This was a huge step forward for the Ducati 959 project. Over the next few days, a pair of calipers and a used wiring harness arrived. The next task was to repair the broken sections of the main harness. Connor chose to cut the damaged sections and splice in the used harness. This method is generally safer and doesn't disrupt the original layout of the wiring. After splicing the wires, the instrument cluster was now fully functional. Now it was time to prep the bodywork, a whole box of white fairing pieces. He started by installing the tail section, followed by the front fairing. Now, you might be wondering why the bodywork is plain white. Connor gave two reasons. First, it allows him to paint it in any custom style he wants later. Second, this set of unpainted fairings was significantly cheaper. For the cooling system, Connor sourced a used set. While they weren't in the best cosmetic condition, they were fully functional. After assembling them, he installed them on the bike. He then continued test fitting the rest of the bodywork. At this point, the Ducati 959 build was about 90% complete. The final step was to paint the white bodywork. Since Connor had it professionally painted elsewhere, he didn't film the detailed process. So let's just jump to the final product. The final result is a stunning blue-gray with a prominent 959 graphic on the sides. You have to admit, this color scheme is a real head-turner. The original clear clutch cover was also replaced with a carbon fiber one, showing that Connor's aesthetic sense is definitely on point. And now, for the end of the video, let's listen to the roar of this incredible Ducati.